Welcome back to ECONVERSE.
Hi, welcome to ECONVERSE. My name is Aditi and this is my co-host Sean.
Hey everyone.
And today with us we have Shivali Bhammer. She is an economics and philosophy graduate from the University of Nottingham. She boasts one of the most diverse career pathways we've seen to date on the podcast, as she is currently a recording artist signed to Sony Music Entertainment, a public speaker, and also a director of investment banking at Raymond James. Shivali, so nice to have you on with us today. Would you like to introduce yourself in your own words, add something else?
I think you did a really good job, and you actually pronounced my surname correctly, and that's because you're Indian. So
Yes.
that was correct. That's a first for me. No, really happy to be here. Loved my time at Nottingham. Very passionate about the Department of Economics and philosophy, but philosophy I found really hard. So consider myself a bit of a wild child, worn far too many hats, but looking forward to having this conversation.
Me too, actually. You've held quite a unique combination of professional roles since leaving university in 2008. So could you give us an overview of your career journey since leaving Nottingham?
Yeah, when I left Nottingham, I thought that I was just going to be a trader. That was the aim. I had done a summer internship at Goldman Sachs on the trading floor, and I thought that's what was meant for me. I then actually ended up in journalism, working for the FT and then for a bonds news wire called MTNI. And after I did that, or whilst I was doing that, I actually got signed to Sony Music BMG in India when I happened to be on holiday in Mumbai. And then my whole life changed, and I went into the music industry full time for the next few years, and ironically missed finance. And so dipped back into finance as an emerging market equity derivatives broker, and then moved to New York, learned all about the media world in terms of SEO and clicks. And I was hosting these massive conferences for people in the media industry on the SEO and SES side and things like that. Very random. And then finally found myself back in conventional investment banking, but on the M&A side, covering private equity firms. So it's been a really weird journey. And if anybody heard that, I feel like they must be extremely tired after listening to that. So I apologize.
Actually, I'm not tired. I'm quite hopeful because I think you've managed to capitalize on your interests. Like you sort of went back to what you used to enjoy and use your hobbies as a way of actually also working and having livelihood. Because I think as students grow up and they start to pursue higher education, their actual interests and passions tend to dull down. And I remember I saw you do classical dancing, Kathak. And
Yep.
I used to do that for 7 years. All of my childhood was Kathak, but then I just lost it. Because-
Amazing.
Yeah, I used to do it, and then I just lost it when I came to uni, and I had to study a lot. So how do you think you've managed to capitalize these interests and balance your creative outlets and also balance you working in the financial sector?
So firstly, I think you need to identify what you really, truly love in life. And for me, I was always a lover of the arts, and I was also a lover of economics. So in fact, I had these two love interests, and I was not willing to let go of either. But in order to do that and to not let go of something, you have to be extremely disciplined. So I created a lot of discipline around my schedule. I actually didn't even drink alcohol till the age of 27. Can you imagine? I went through the whole of university and precious not having anything. But that enabled me to continue my artistic way of life. And then also, I think it's also about kind of working very efficiently. I try and have the same trading mentality that I had when I was younger to my work, where I put a time constraint on having to get things done. And I don't I tend not to procrastinate, which is a really hard skill to develop, but I think it's an important one. Right now we have so many different influences, right? My phone is going off. I can see it going off on the left-hand side. Emails are popping up. There's constant distraction. Trying to quieten your mind and eliminate that noise has really helped for me to be able to do everything that I want to do. And also, I would say that you just have to really want to do it. You can do these things, but it's a question of how much you love it and how committed you are. So, like you, I'm a Kathak dancer. I have a diploma and I'm doing my post-diploma in Kathak. And I'm supposed to do my big solo show, dance show, which is called a Rangmanch Pravesh. I've been trying to do that for the last 6 years. And my guru, who's what we call a master teacher in India, is totally fed up of me because he's like, I don't know when you're going to do this because you keep saying you're going to do it and you're not giving it your attention. So I realized, well, yeah, at the moment I'm not doing that because I'm giving my attention elsewhere, and that's tough. It's tough having to prioritize, but you have to think about what you need to achieve within that year or within those 6 months, and then start knocking things off and taking a small, tiny break and relaunching yourself into the next thing.
One main issue I think most people face is they are told by their families or peers that, oh, this is not important. You can play music later, but you need to earn money. You need to get this degree. How do you think you managed that?
So my mother was extremely passionate about the arts, extremely. And she always pushed me towards dance and music and really anything that I wanted to do artistically. She knew I had it naturally inside of me. My dad was probably less keen. He's not really into the arts. And I think his happiest day was when I decided to go to Harvard Business School, where I'm doing my EMBA at the moment. And that was probably the day he rejoiced. I know when I decided that I was going to leave finance and just do music full time, when my first album was coming out, my dad was pretty skeptical and did somewhat question my decision making. But you have to follow your instinct and your gut. And whilst music didn't make the same kind of paycheck finance would have made in those days for me, I got to be one of the last few artists to wake up in the morning, go down to a music store and see my CDs stacked up there, and, open the Times of India and see a review on my album and things like that I would never have got otherwise. And of course, when my dad saw all of that, I think he thinks I made the right decision now. So your parents are going to push you in certain directions. And often what your parents say, I would say, is 80% correct. Even 90% of what parents say, in fact, is correct. But there is that 10% where if you are really good at something artistically and you have what it takes and you have the passion to commit to it, then you will do yourself a disservice by not trying. But the best thing you've ever done is by getting a degree that you can fall back on, right? And economics is a solid degree. So you've already done that part. Now it's your turn to really explore the other side of you and give yourself that freedom.
That's pretty interesting. But you also say, because I read one of your interviews, you said that you were introvert. Was that correct?
Yeah. So then, I find that people find this really funny that I call myself an introvert. I am an introvert. Well, okay. I think I am an introvert. Yes. I'm friendly and I am social and I love to perform, but I gain a lot of energy from being alone. Yeah. Like most artists, I spend most of my evenings by myself. I'm also an only child. I don't feel the need to be out all the time. I really actually declutter my social calendar just so that I can spend time working on my craft. And if I spend too much time socializing, I feel like I'm losing my sense of self. And so I think, to me, that's being an introvert, though I People probably wouldn't describe me that way. But what they're confusing me with is just being a performer.
Yeah.
Which is the extrovert, which they think is an extroverted side, but it's an artistic side.
No, I think that's a pretty popular perception. Introverts apparently can't talk to people, but really introvert just means that you gain energy by being by yourself.
Exactly.
But do you think that, for example, as an introvert, like you gain energy by being by yourself, do you think that by being by yourself, you actually become more productive? Because personally, I like to have some time by myself alone. Like, as you said, like if I go out too much, if I socialize too much, I feel like that I'm being influenced by a lot of various different people, and maybe I get peer pressured pretty easily. So that might be why. But how do you manage being a performer and just like, what exactly do you do? You take time off by yourself?
No, I don't really I rarely ever take time off. But what I do is I keep my evenings very clear, right? So a lot of people will go out after work. I tend not to. Even when I was at university, I spent a lot of time, I would walk to and from campus by myself and listen to music. And when I was listening to music, I was doing a lot of my sort of creative thinking and forming of ideas. And then I just, obviously not drinking helped because I wasn't out partying or raving that much. And not to say that I wouldn't do it. I still would hit, Geisha on a Wednesday and Oceana on a Monday and whatever it was. But everything had a limit and a discipline around it. And I don't know if that comes from, I did sort of 15 years of ballet or something like that growing up as a child, and that created a lot of discipline in my life. So maybe it's that. But I do think that for any artist, in order to really work on your craft, you need to create space, and you need to create silent space. Because although socializing is very fun, a lot of those influences you do not need. And a lot of it is noise. And that energy isn't necessarily positive for you. And it's kind of just wasting your time. I think majority of people waste each other's time. And then there are a handful of people that have meaningful impact on your growth and your journey.
I think that's very important to address. I think in university especially, it's very important to be comfortable with solitude, because that's when you kind of find what's happening. It's such a transitional phase of your life, really. You get out of your house and you're living by yourself, you're finding people.
Yeah.
So to me, what I take from you capitalizing your interest is just you being comfortable with yourself and you finding yourself in your solitude and not afraid of maybe not joining other people or just having your own lifestyle, I guess, like having your evenings by yourself.
I think so. And I've always been like that. So as a child, I would take tapes. I don't even know if you guys know what a tape is, but oh my gosh, you don't know what a
VHS tape
is?
I don't know what a tape is. I'm so sorry.
A cassette tape?
Is it like the one you kind of play around, bro?
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is hilarious. I'm going to tell people this later. But so a cassette tape was like this little, it was like this with and it had tape inside, and you would put it in what was called a cassette recorder, and it would play music. Or you could also record things onto it. So I would record these fake radio stations, and I would do that by myself, sitting in the living room. Or I would write plays by myself. Or I would actually reenact the whole of the Evita soundtrack in my living room while my mum was out. And then because I'd be so embarrassed that she'd catch me doing this whole theatrical drama by myself, whenever she would open the door, I would quickly switch it off and pretend I was watching TV, which is such a boring act in comparison to what I was doing. But that's how I spent my time. And maybe that's because I was an only child, or I had nothing, I was just a bit weird. But that I've always sort of maintained that. And so my joy is in that. And I think, going back to something you said, I think you really need to embrace who you are and your authenticity. And in Sanskrit, we actually have this word called Swabhav, and Swabhav means your nature, your natural nature and state of being. And I think that's what you need to embrace and forget the peer pressure, forget what other people are doing. It really doesn't matter at all. And just do what naturally comes to you and gives you joy.
Yeah, I think this is such an important topic because as you graduate, as you go on and find jobs, it's easy to lose your nature.
Yeah.
I think your nature is what other people's nature is. You kind of try to fit into this model of, and I need to do this. This is my next step.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to normalize that it's okay to use your creativity and have that authenticity and pursue that.
I agree. Totally agree.
Going back to your time in University of Nottingham, what was like the main things that you've learned that you found really useful back then?
So, well, I can separate it out, right? So I can tell you about the useful things I found in my degree and then the useful things I found in general, right? So, for example, in my degree, if we go to economics, supply, demand, and equilibrium, it is ingrained in you to the point where you look at everything in that context. I mean, including dating. It's all supply and demand, and, you know, especially when you look at the app culture, which I find completely fascinating. And once you can apply that to everything, you can break down any sort of business dynamic or opportunity into economic terms, which I think is really cool. And I think that really helped me in my music. So when I first got signed, I was the first singer to ever be signed for Hindu devotional music, which we call bhajans. They're basically hymns, and they are devotional in nature. And we were producing them in an R&B urban format, which had never been done before. Now, to most people, they will look at that and think, oh, that's because she's an artist, she's a musician. I could look at it equally and say, well, it's because I'm an economist. Because what I did was I looked at the market, I defined a gap in the market, which was urban R&B devotional music. I saw that it was a niche, it would be a very niche product, right? I understood that the consumer, although they didn't have it yet, they did not know what they were missing. But I could introduce them to something that they would realize was missing in their life, right? And then I basically pitched that product to the record label and then stuck with it because I wanted to build a brand and have ownership within that category and that space. And what I would do is understand that, okay, this isn't going to get me like Beyonce style fame, or it's not going to sell these kinds of records or, you know, these kinds of numbers of streams because it's obviously all religious music. However, what it will get me is XYZ, and I can bundle it with motivational speaking, or I can bundle it with writing on Eastern philosophy and basically create a package. And bundling, again, is another economic concept. So am I an economist that I've decided to do this, or am I a musician? Right? It's kind of interesting.
It is. It's like you have all this knowledge in form of dots and you've connected them. So using your economics knowledge and applying that to music and just creating your own brand. And I think just this advice on creating your own brand is very valuable. It's not easily accessible to people. They're not aware of it.
Yeah, creating your own brand is tough. It's something I'm still trying to do. And in fact, I just did branding consulting strategy around what the Shivali brand is. And it's easy when we are doing it for a product that's external to us. You can think of all of the big brands, Coca-Cola, Apple, and sort of understand how they've chosen to define themselves, market themselves, what they feel that they're giving their consumer, and how they have stuck to a particular kind of narrative or storytelling. When you're doing it as yourself, as a person, it is difficult because we are multidimensional. We have emotional elements, intellectual elements. You know, it's a whole different ball game. But you also have to try and create a brand strategy for yourself. And now it's becoming even more important, no matter what walk of life you're in or what career you're choosing to do. Everybody has a personal brand now because we live in a social media driven world where everything we do is being promoted to the outside world. And so the messaging of who you are becomes extremely important.
So what exactly is the Shivali brand? What kind of branding are you trying to create?
So I think we've defined it as just the devotional voice. It is literally 3 words, the devotional voice. And I think that encapsulates everything that I do, from dance, music, writing, public speaking. Fine, it sort of skips out the banking side.
The bank.
But that's a separate, right? That's separate because that I'm not really a brand in that. I am my bank's brand. And I speak or I sing using their sheet music versus mine.
Since I'm also graduating this year, what would you recommend just for graduating students, especially in this year where like the economy is just kind of horrible? And what would you just kind of recommend, especially like people just starting out with they don't exactly know what to do. And I assume you're in that same position.
I knew what I wanted to do when I graduated, but I wanted to do a lot of things, right? So I've always wanted to do a lot of things. I probably had the other problem where it's what did I not want to do? I wanted to be a trader. I also wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be prime minister. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to write books. The list is so long. The only thing I ever got told that I really could not be was a doctor. I even tried that when I was at school, talking to my science teachers saying, hey, do you think I should try and do this? And they were like, absolutely not. It is not your thing. So my problem has always been I've wanted to do everything. And I think when you're leaving university, I would say leave room to be surprised. Leave room to let doors open that you haven't necessarily walked towards or seen, because opportunity comes in so many different forms. I never planned to be a singer, ever. I did it for fun. If you had told me I was going to get a recording contract with one of the biggest labels in the world when I was 23, I would have said, no, I'll be sitting in a bank. And yet it happened. So I would say that be extremely open-minded, because what you think you might want to do might end up being something very different. And you might fall into something that you didn't expect to fall into. And so I just really believe in this idea of allowing yourself to be surprised and also welcoming things that come in. I would also say your 20s are great years to experiment with different things and to figure out what you might suit. I now sit in a role within finance that I absolutely love. There is no way the 21-year-old version of me would have known that I would be doing what I'm doing now within investment banking. Never. And I have gone through a rainbow of careers at the same time. And also still simultaneously have my music career, because I just, released my 3rd album in February. So it's very much active. I would also say that you can do more than one thing. You don't need to box yourself in. If I can have a pretty substantial music career and also a banking career, then I think anybody can do it, because I'm really, really not that special. I'm just the same as anybody else. So if I can do it, I always say, if I can do it, someone else can do it. And it starts with me and it starts with you. And it's just having that confidence in yourself. Fine, I understand the economy is not great. It's a hard market, but it's not impossible, because you are capable, especially as economic students of our university. So have that courage and that confidence, and do not doubt yourself, and do not spend time putting yourself down, and do not waste time comparing yourself to other people. Back yourself. You've had school back you, you've had university back you, you've had parents and professors back you, and now it's your turn. to stand up and back yourself. The minute you do that, I promise you that the entire universe will fall down at your feet. But you have to have such self-belief. And I think that's the majority of the game. And rejection comes. It comes a lot. It came to me in different ways. It still comes to me now on different things that I want to do and I want to achieve. But you have to just dust it off. And I was going to make a Jay-Z reference, but I realized nobody will know what that is because you guys are too young. So I'm just going to save that for myself. But you really do just need to have that attitude of starting again and again and again every day.
Since you work in all these different sectors, especially as a former economics student, how would you describe the main differences between working in the media and the arts and then going to the financial sector? Do you think there are any skill sets that overlap or contradict?
Absolutely. I think more overlaps than doesn't overlap. I think what makes economics students special is that we are able to see connections. And I would urge you as an economics student to constantly look at the world and see how does this relate to that? And how does that connect to this? And that's what economics is about, right? I think both on the macro scale and the micro scale, really, right? You've got something going on in China, but it's impacting something in US. You've got Russia, Ukraine impacting what we see on our shelves in the UK, right? And you see it on that kind of economic political scale, but then you will also see economics in sort of a social setting as well. And the more you see these connections, the more you will see them in the way that you govern your life. And so when it comes to, for example, whether I choose to do music or finance or I straddle the two, what I'm seeing is that in both I have to perform, right? One's built on relationships, the other is built on entertainment, but both requires the buy-in of people. It's a people's business, both of them. And both of them require attention to detail. Both of them require pitching. In one, you're pitching to gain, an M&A business or that financial business or get to know a fund, in my case, get to know private equity firms or whatever it is. In the other, you are pitching yourself for shows, the albums. So really the basic skill set is the same. It's just the creative outlet that is different. And that's a person that is something that's just unique to you as an individual. But all those underlying skills you can build and then you can use them everywhere.
But just on those underlying skills, how did you hone those skills personally? And how do you recommend other people to do so?
I was president of a society at Nottingham. I would encourage everybody to take on some form of leadership. It's brilliant. If you become a leader, I was president of Asian Society at my school, and then at university I was president of the Hindu Society at Nottingham. And I think taking on leadership responsibilities at an early age puts you in a position to A, garner a lot of confidence, B, practice public speaking, C, learn to sell your ideas and innovate, and D, work with a team. So I would suggest that. I would also suggest that no matter what you do, you have an interest that is outside of the realm of academia. So, some people might be very into football. I have a lot of guy friends who are really, really into sport growing up, and they don't play it anymore. But those who do play it or continue to be part of a team, you can see the influence it has on their work and the impact. Team sports is really great to build your business acumen, I feel. So I would say, or, even playing an instrument, right? Something like that requires discipline, attention, and that feeds into your everyday life. So I would say when you're at university, yes, concentrate on your degree. Yes, have a great time socializing. But A, do not forget your hobbies and lean into them. If you don't have any that you know of, pick new ones. Nottingham is full of clubs and societies. I wish I had done more, if I'm honest. I went to cricket club, women's cricket club, for 2 weeks. I joined the radio and did tried to be sort of a radio DJ for a while. So I did some random stuff, but I didn't take advantage of what our university was offering. I mean, some might say that I did, given I ran that society, but try and do more. We have a lot of time when we're at university, and I feel a lot of it is just wasted sitting in our dorms. Like, I don't even know what we were doing, or just hanging around doing literally nothing. That time can be really well spent, and it's worth it. And come up with things that don't exist. I think it's amazing that you have this podcast. I think it's a great creation. It's gonna catapult your skill set to another level by the time, in the next sort of 5 years. You're gonna look back on this and you're gonna think, what a great stepping stone. In the same way, when I was running Hindu Sock, we didn't have a show. We never did like a performance show. So I created something called Spice with and I pulled in Asian society, and I think now it's called something different, but I think it's continued to have this show every single year, which showcases talent. It's like a talent show. But I started it when I was there because it didn't exist. So I would say, look for gaps in the market, just the way you guys have created a podcast. That was a gap. So you created something. Keep doing that.
What are your future looking like right now? What do you think of your current present? And if you had any advice you could give in one sentence to your younger self, what would you give?
I've been working on a pilot series. I would love that to get picked up. That's my aspiration. And a film script. So I would like my writing to be picked up. That would be great. I would like to do a 4th album eventually, though I do think my producer, who's also my best friend, would kill me having to do this again. I used to make him come and visit Nottingham and sing in the common room. My friends, it didn't go down very well. And I think my aspiration for the future is just to continue to be excited. The first thing you've got to learn is that there is no end goal. The minute you hit what you think is a milestone, there'll be another one. So in fact, I would say forget about the end goal. Enjoy things as they come. There is no end, right?
Yeah, so being open to surprises. I think you should always be open to surprises.
Yeah. Don't stress too much about reaching some sort of level. That will come. You will tick those boxes. But if you're always focused on just the end goal, you're really not enjoying the present. And the present is all you have. We have this moment. So really hone in on this moment and give it your all. Just love it for what it is. If I could give myself advice in one sentence, I would say detach and let it go. You will get over it faster than you ever think. It applies to every single thing in your life, whether it's work, relationships, problems, whatever they are. You have the resilience and the strength to be able to let things go and get over them. If you can have the mindset of detachment is the most wonderful lesson you can ever learn in your life. If you can learn to detach from the outcomes of things and have acceptance in the way things are unfolding, you will be far more present. And when you're present, you're far more productive. And when you're productive, you are actually achieving those end goals. But if you are clinging and hanging on to disappointments and things that have happened in the past, you're wasting time. So let it go. You will get over it very quickly.
That's great. I think acceptance of things is very important as well, because now as we're graduating and I'm going to my final year, and there's this thing where, you have to do something very productive during your summer. But it's like, now I feel like I have this sense of comfort in my authenticity. It doesn't have to be exactly how the summer needs to be. Like, I can travel if I want to. I can explore things.
Absolutely. Just don't be lazy. Laziness kills the mind. Do what you want, but commit to it with passion. If you're going to have a holiday, have the best damn holiday you've ever had. And if you're going to work so hard. Do everything with passion.
I think that's the end of our podcast then.
Okay.
So, remind Shivali has a webinar coming up, or it would have been released when this released. So Yeah, on productivity tips.
Yeah, feel free to check out the webinar. It would have happened by now. And it's all about, I guess, tips on being productive. I wouldn't say I'm the expert. I would say I'm a learn in progress. So whatever I'm learning, I am sharing.
Thank you so much. We love talking to you. We love talking about you. And thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, Shivali. It was great speaking with you.
Thanks and congratulations. I'm really, I think you guys are doing a great job, and I'm very, very proud and happy that you've created this.
You've been listening to the ECONVERSE podcast, brought to you by economics students and alumni. Listen to more episodes on Spotify or visit the School of Economics website.